You are standing on a dry lakebed in California, and a full-size airliner is flying straight at you with nobody on board.
Engineers have built obstacles into the ground ahead of it, put there to tear the wings open as it goes past. That is the experiment. This is the story of what happened when it arrived 12 degrees wrong.
Everyone remembers the fireball because it was on the evening news. Almost nobody knows that it went out after 9 seconds, or that the fire which actually destroyed the aircraft was burning somewhere. The test had not planned to put it. But by 1980, the Federal Aviation Administration had spent perhaps 20 years and millions of dollars researching a fuel additive. The idea was elegant. Ordinary jet fuel, released at speed from a torn tank, breaks into a fine mist that catches fire almost instantly. An additive called FM9 was meant to stop that mist from forming, so the fuel came out in heavy droplets that are much harder to light. The agency had promised Congress it would demonstrate this on a real airliner. 4 years of work followed that promise. A 4-engine jet was rebuilt to fly itself, and the team at Dryden borrowed the remote piloting methods they had developed on smaller research aircraft. Engineers flew the aeroplane 14 times with a crew on board. Under remote control, it made 9 takeoffs and 13 landings. It flew about 69 practice approaches to the impact site, descending each time to 150 feet, which was the lowest altitude a safe climb away could still be flown from. Out on the lakebed, the crash site itself was built. Crews laid a bed of coarse railroad gravel 1,200 feet long and 300 feet wide, and they laid it there deliberately as a friction ignition source. The whole point was to guarantee a fire. Then they installed the wing openers, the rows of ground obstacles the reports also call cutters, rhinos, and strikers. Those would tear the wing tanks open at speed and release the fuel the experiment existed to watch. Almost a year and a half of negotiation produced the numbers the aeroplane had to hit. The team wanted a sink rate of about 17 feet per second. They wanted 150 knots of forward speed. They wanted the nose about 1 degree up. They wanted the aircraft inside a longitudinal window 75 feet either side of the aiming point and inside 15 feet of the center line, and the wings had to be level to within 1 degree, either way. That last requirement is the one worth remembering. On December 1st of 1984, the aeroplane took off at 9:13 in the morning. 9 minutes later, it was on final approach. At 200 feet, the profile was exactly right lengthways and drifting right of the center line. A project rule said that below 150 feet the pilot was committed because the cameras and data systems had to be triggered. He thought he could still get back. He committed, and in the words of the flight report, he got rather vigorous on the controls. Look at what the aeroplane actually achieved, because most of it is remarkable. The measured sink rate was 17.3 feet per second against a target of 15 to 17. The measured speed was 151.5 knots, dead inside the window. The pitch attitude was 0 degrees inside the window. 3 of the hardest numbers in the whole test came in almost perfect, and then there is the roll. The requirement was 1 degree. The aeroplane arrived at 12. 12 degrees of bank means one wing is low, and the wing that was low carried 2 engines. Those engines struck the ground first, and the impact yawed the aircraft to the left. It slid into the crash site grid sideways rather than square, and the obstacles waiting there ripped open the right inboard engine and the right wing tanks. Fuel came out. The gravel bed did exactly what it had been laid down to do. A fireball erupted from the right inboard engine and swallowed the aeroplane. That image went around the world within hours. The press reported the demonstration as a failure for the simple and obvious reason that everybody had just watched an airliner disappear inside a ball of fire. The additive was supposed to prevent exactly that. The program's own summary calls the day a setback for the researchers, and then the film was examined frame by frame. Investigators went back to the exterior and interior camera footage, and they found that the fireball diminished within 9 seconds. The fuselage came through it with relatively little damage. The reduced intensity of that fire is attributed in the program's summary report to the antimisting characteristic of the fuel. The thing everyone had watched and written off was the treated fuel behaving something like the way it was designed to. So the aircraft burned anyway, and it burned for a long time. Fire crews began working the wreck about 90 seconds after impact and sprayed foam for over an hour and a half. Investigators traced that long fire to burning fuel inside the fuselage. It had entered through a forward cargo door and through openings made by the wing cutters passing through the fuselage structure. Those cutters were built to open wings. They reached the body of the aeroplane because it arrived rolled and skewed. The agency proposed to confirm that conclusion by recreating the impact conditions in later tests. None of that was visible from the press line. 97% of the sensors on the structure, the seats, the dummies, and the restraints were still recording at impact. Vertical loads peaked around 14 to 15 G in the nose and fell to 7 and then 2 through the rest of the cabin, which a fit, well-restrained adult would have survived. Both agencies formally concluded that this had been a survivable accident and said so to a congressional committee 4 months later. The test that looked like a catastrophe was measuring the entire time.